Christmas is just a week away, and we're all scrambling trying to get the last of our holiday preparations done and looking forward to a little bit of time off. Christmas has always been one of my favorite times of the year, but for many people, Christmas is a difficult time of the year because they have experienced the loss of a loved one, and Christmas seems to bring out some of that sadness and that sorrow that we experience. And so today I thought I wanted to just give a brief message out to those of my friends, my church family, who may be in such a position where Christmas this year does carry with it a certain amount of sorrow. Grief, it is a powerful human emotion. It's different, it's expressed differently, it's experienced differently based on the type of person and the type of loss and the type of relationship that was there. We engage our grief differently. Some try to block it, and others try to experience it to its fullest. Grief for me has been a part of my life. When you're in ministry, you lose people. And over the last several years, I've lost friends and those who were like family to me. But my first real experience with grief happened over 20 years ago now, when I was 15 years old and lost my brother to a car accident. As I think about how I have experienced grief, sometimes I think that it's even more powerful today than it was when his loss was so near to me and so fresh in my mind. His absence so conspicuous every morning and every evening. The holidays bring out the conspicuousness of someone's absence, and for me it hasn't typically happened at Christmas time, but I can give you a powerful example of it in my own life. Just a couple of years ago, I took my wife to the gravesite of my brother. It was the first time that I had taken her there. I don't visit it very often, but occasionally I try and go. And she went with me, asked if she could go with me, and so I said sure, and we drove out there together. And as we stood there in front of his grave, there I was next to the woman that I loved. His absence became so overwhelming that I just wept. Sobbed pretty much uncontrollably for I don't even know how long. I couldn't think a coherent thought. I couldn't make a coherent sentence. I just sat there with this sense that something in my life had vanished and had ceased to be, like some beautiful melody was forever forgotten and never to be resung, and there was just something so overwhelming about it at that moment. And I think for a lot of people, the holidays will bring that out. We have traditions, and we have family time, and the absence of that loved one, whether it be a parent or a spouse or a friend or a child, will just stand out so much in some of those moments when the familiar drama begins to replay, the tradition that happens every year, the conversations that we're all so familiar with, and then all of a sudden one actor just won't be there to deliver their lines, and everyone will kind of look sideways and know that things are forever different. And there are different kinds of losses. I think about friends who have, like me, lost family members, lost grandparents, lost brothers. I think about friends who have lost spouses and the ache that is there. I don't know, though, that there's any more painful loss than the loss of a child. I think that's probably one of the most unnatural occurrences. No parent wants to outlive their child. But in our sin-cursed world, death does not stay within its banks. It rages in torrents and seems to grab and pull under those who to our mind should have lived and far outlived us. And when grief becomes like that, we are at a loss to explain it. We are sometimes asking why. We're sometimes wondering why things couldn't have been just a little different. Just a little difference would have made the difference. A untimely trip, or a chance conversation, or a delay here, or a better exam there, and this death could have been avoided and could have been averted, and our pain wouldn't be there. And sometimes we feel like we drew the short end of the stick. Others aren't experiencing loss like we are. Others haven't been through the pain like we've been through the pain, and sometimes we want to ask God why. We want to know why it had to be this way. If He's in control and He answers prayer and He really cares about us, why did it have to happen like this? And one reason why Christmas is my favorite time of year is because I think Christmas answers that question. God could, in detail, explain every seemingly chance occurrence of life and every conversation, and how His incredible and divine will is working out for redemption in all of our lives in intricate ways and patterns that we simply cannot discern. He could write us books. He could grant us entire encyclopedias of how detailed and how accurate His plan is to bring about the redemption of mankind. And instead of all of that, God gave us His Son. Instead of a detailed answer of why things happen and what His plan is, God showed us that we can trust Him. God graciously gave us His only begotten and beloved Son to come into our world, to show us that He does care, to show us that He would not hold back any good thing from us, that He wouldn't even spare His own Son. And at Christmas time, we remember that when we can't answer all the whys of God's plan, when we can't explain our loss, we can trust God. We can trust the one who watched His Son come to earth and live among us, so that He could die and taste death of every man, and not just die, but die shamefully, die painfully, die with such power and such pathos that the Father would have to turn His own eyes away and not witness that horrific event, not allow 10,000 angels to come rescue His Son. What do we do with our grief at Christmas? What do we do when we're supposed to be celebrating? There's jolly St. Nick's and there's presents. And yet we feel sorrow, we feel grief. Sometimes so strongly that it threatens to just overwhelm us. What do? We worship. We worship God because He didn't just give His Son to die. He gave His Son to conquer death. He gave us His Son so that one day we could know that every tear will be dried and every wrong will be made right. He gave us His Son. And so we worship Him, because I would not have given my Son. I cannot love like God loves. But because God loves like that, I can worship Him, even when things are hard, even when I don't understand, and even when grief is my companion. Grief makes some people angry and bitter. Grief makes some people depressed. But my grief is a grief filled with hope, and even at times filled with joy, because I know that grief is just a temporary companion. One day, grief will be replaced. One day, grief will come to an end, because finally and forever, the Father will glorify His Son in a consummation of all world history and events, and we will one day see the final victory with those with whom we've parted for a while in this life. And so, as hard as this Christmas may be for you, let's worship the Father together. Let's remember that for the Father, Christmas was hard as well, as He saw His Son given to Mary and Joseph, and born in a manger. Let's trust the Lord, and let our grief be seasoned with hope and joy. May God richly bless you. Merry Christmas.